So that's what we were.
do what they're supposed to
Sidebar.
do, I want
It says it's being live.
because I don't want to break something.
I'm assuming he's got the,
It doesn't come back.
you and I.
I'm really worried about that.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was, Chris.
Is withdrawing or.
Oh, yeah, we get a link right after that.
Not if people are busy building whatever the hell they're gonna, like,
Hopefully we're good.
what we've been seeing is that people ask for forgiveness. You know, and what can you do when the siding's already on the building?
How are you?
Yeah, what I said was, we should make them take it down, and the rest of the committee was like, what's that? Where, I've fixed, you came back, and he threw away the old siding, he didn't even give us the opportunity to keep the siding. Yeah, so.
That's something you just gotta route through. Johnny.
Well, I've talked to John about it, I've ranted to John about it, but I would like to see that happen, because my concern is that as real estate prices still high, and for people who are not in the community, are not interested in buying our stuff. They're gonna do whatever they're gonna do. And we're fighting against that right now. I'm really nervous
Yes, I
about
was
it.
like, you know, in there.
And I'm like, you don't have any punitive measures that say you must follow this, or you're going to incur.
Mayor, I think it's.
You know, people do not
I know we do it.
It's working.
change the behavior, there's not
Somebody's having an
negative
issue.
ramifications, that force, but like, it's too painful to continue steps.
Yeah, I deal with that every day.
Oh, what you do, like, change does not happen unless there are negative.
Yeah, and that's what we're still.
I wish I could say differently, we should do it for altruistic reasons, it's dumb. Right, it has to be painful. to
Yeah,
say
that's
that.
the income. We were trying to.
That would be my
I've got plans. You just gotta route it through to us.
That was what's to do with it. So you're-
But he said, they're so, it's so much more. You guys are getting big for that package.
Small town with a.
Yes, that's a good thing, it's not a bad thing.
Alright, well, let me get set up. It was nice seeing you.
I've got a picture of it. So we've done all that. No, we should apply for one now.
Yes.
No, it's nice. Never left town. You didn't even have a license.
It was an unseen area. Me, right, came on Monday.
Consider myself one.
I must.
Great.
I was like, wow. This is the second beautiful sweater you've been wearing. You have like a.
I can help you.
I still have no clue.
Yeah, right.
I used to the local contractor about restating that, stripping and restating.
That front door needs some work.
But so is the,
Wonder,
so the
is
railings.
that what comes with that hearing or for the?
Railing for the main things that
I
are.
have water, if you see the water going down.
I just see dust. So I don't.
No, look at the railings when you go up,
So we
they
can
have
just-
water standing going down.
Oh, they just, we asked.
The library.
Well, there's not a sign.
Well, I would like to welcome everybody to the April 29th regular council meeting for 2024. And we will call to order at 7:13. And I'd like to start off with roll call, please.
Janine Mariani, Jim Clark, Lisa Manifold. Here. Kate Collier. Here. Scott Pennell, Mayor Pro Tem Jeremy Jones.
Here.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Here, all please rise for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Yeah, I'm
Kill yourself on the Colorado.
causing some havoc with the map back here. We have an agenda before us tonight. And do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the agenda for the April 29th, 2024 meeting.
Thank you, Lisa. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Kate. Any discussion of the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Does anyone tonight feel they have a conflict of interest? All right, hearing none, I would like to move on to the minutes. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from April 22nd, 2024.
Thank you, Jeremy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Kate. Any discussion of the minutes?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have bills before us tonight. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the bills through April 29th, 2024.
Thank you, Jeremy. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Lisa. Any discussion of the bills? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Lisa Manifold,
Yes.
Kate Collier. Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Jeremy Jones.
Yes.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes. We will move to public comment, and I understand we have at least a couple.
Mayor, I think they're for the hearing.
Oh, okay. Folks are still welcome to make public comment.
I have a Carl.
I'm sorry, please
Is it-
omit that. I was told that I. Sorry about that.
Understood, okay.
Okay,
No comment.
all right. We do not have any first readings tonight. We do have a public hearing. And I would like to call this public hearing to order at 7:16. And this is for ordinance number 14, series 2024, an ordinance granting a conditional use to permit temporary seasonal employee camping during the 2024 rafting season, only on a certain property west of the Shelley Quinn Ball Fields Park, also known as part of the Silver Spruce annexation to the city of Idaho Springs. The order of hearing will go as follows. We will hear from staff, and then we will hear from the applicant. There will be a chance for public comment. And then council will also have the opportunity to ask questions of both the applicant and staff at the time. I will then close the hearing. There'll be no more discussion, and we will deliberate after that. With that being said, I would like to offer Dylan, please come up.
All right, hello, council. As the mayor suggested, this is a conditional use permit request to allow for camping for aviator rafting and ziplining employees on the parcel mentioned directly west of the Ball Fields Park. Duke Bradford is the applicant. He's with us remotely tonight. And he has a presentation prepared for after. So some questions may be relevant for him, some for me. Happy to answer anything, of course. So conditional use permit, just for a little bit of background, is in the code is it allows uses not specified as being by right in the various zoning districts as established. So the reason for this kind of ties to the background on this property. It was annexed into the city in 1970s, but because of how it was never developed and the agreements with that annexation were never really met. And so there's not really zoning on the property. And so there's not really any use by right as it currently stands. There's a little more nuance to that, but that's essentially the reason we're sort of here tonight is kind of twofold. First, like employee camping or seasonal camping isn't really permitted in any zoning district, but it also, this one doesn't really have fun zoning and permitting. The request is for up to 30 overnight occupants. This would be a mix of tent sites and camper van sites. And as part of the packet of materials, they've submitted a proposed lease agreement for the site that they've used to operate. It's similar to a site that they've operated in Chaffey County for some time. As mentioned, this is for one season, the request, and if approved, they would need to go through processes to get approved in the future. I've outlined in the staff report, and I won't go into detail on it, kind of what we see as a potential way forward for sort of a permanent creation of a similar use on a site, but what might also want to be considered if camping is considered approved tonight or not approved is whether we need kind of just standards for the city of Idaho. The Planning Commission reviewed this back on April 3rd. They ultimately recommended approval by a vote of 4-1, and they put some additional conditions in place. We've included those as red lines at the back of the packet. And with that, I'll just go through the criteria for approval. There's 3. The first is that it conforms to all requirements of the city's regulations, standards, and development requirements. So I kind of just laid out various items that were considered. The first is water and sewer. Code section 12-5 requires connection if you're within 100 feet of water and sewer facilities. This one certainly is farther than 100 feet from wastewater. It's potentially within 100 feet of a 2-inch water line, but it doesn't appear that would be sort of sufficient for uses. The code also allows, in exceptional circumstances, an exemption from that requirement. So what's being requested instead would be for this season only portable toilets, if approved. This would align with Clear Creek County regulations that allow portable toilets for up to 12 months. The idea being that staff would say if approved, we wouldn't want to necessarily see that in the future, but it would theoretically meet the requirement, especially for a 1-season trial. For water, they're proposing to bring a 330-gallon tank of potable water on site that would serve that purpose. Again, permanent facilities might be more appropriate if it's a permanent use, but for now, it appears that these could meet public health, safety, welfare standards. Access would be off of East Idaho Springs Road or County Road 314, which goes through our Ball Fields Park. Our standards for specifications and specifications for design and construction state that lane width should be 12 feet. This is close to 12 feet in all spots. It's slightly below in others. But we did talk to Kelly from the fire authority, who mentioned that they could get access to the site for emergency services potentially, but he would want to review plans and make sure everything works before it went forward. And so we've recommended conditions in favor of that. Parking is required on site as well. They provided a plan that could accommodate up to 40 vehicles. We've calculated out, there's not a campground calculation, but if you take it as like a multifamily dwelling, you'd require 1.5 spaces per efficiency unit. A tent or camper van is certainly an efficiency unit, I guess. So that's what I took as a calculation, which would be 37.5 parking spaces, which these would be met. For this season, they're recommending or proposing to just keep it as delineated gravel parking. In the future, code does, our specifications would ask that it's paved. Moving on, trash and waste disposal, they will have on-site dumpsters that are emptied weekly. They already have a contract in place with a trash provider. As far as noise is concerned, they have that handbook and lease agreement that would require quiet hours as listed in the report. And then the last one that I really spoke to would be wildfire risk. Originally, they were talking about communal campfires, but at Planning Commission, And after Kelly, the fire chief's recommendation, planning commission recommended no natural fires, no wood fires, potentially an allowance for gas or propane fires, but the applicant, and I'll let him speak to this, but at the planning commission, he mentioned that no fires would also be suitable to him, and then it would become just management. So let's see, there's likely work that would require potentially building permits, such as like tent pads for camping, which have been proposed. Those would have to be reviewed and approved by admin staff as well as building apartment staff before they could be occupied. So that, I mentioned there's a couple things that it's kind of generally meets other things that as a temporary use, it's a little more questionable, but and would need to be improved for anything permanent. But again, this is for a potentially 3-month use of the site. Moving on to second criteria, comprehensive plan compliance. Staff believes that there could be an argument that this could be met. Comprehensive plan refers to the site as mixed use or parks. Employee housing, campgrounds could both fit within that potentially. Comprehensive plan also talks about housing, talks about affordability and accessibility. This is not a long-term request, but it does solve a potential place where folks could camp for the season at a rate that's only $400 for the whole season. That's clearly affordable to these folks. And, it's not a long-term solution necessarily. And as I've talked to Chaffey County staff and Clear Creek County staff, they say, this doesn't necessarily solve the problem long-term, but for 30 employees that are part of a critical work, seasonal workforce, now they have a place that's safe and managed and regulated where they can stay rather than what they're doing alternatively, which is camp in the woods somewhere or camp behind Safeway or go a lot of places that we kind of know that's happening. It's not always regulated well, and then there's potentially issues with trash and unregulated fires and the like. So the third one is impacts on adjacent properties. And specifically, it says impacts that are significantly different in nature, type, or extent than impacts caused by uses permitted by right. Obvious caveat is there aren't really any uses permitted by right, but a similar use might be residential, multifamily. And if that's the case, the big impact will be folks coming and going from the site, vehicle trips, pedestrians in the area, and potential use of adjacent trespass, things like that, across adjacent properties. An important thing to consider would be Ballfields Park, which vehicles will have to go through in order to access the site. Staff generally believes that that it won't cause significantly more issues than if something was developed on site permanently, but knows that ensuring no issues between the park users, this site's critical. They are proposing to have an on-site manager at all times, who in their agreement, they call their mayor, and they're an employee of the business. And so hopefully that would help mitigate those issues. The other potential issue might be folks who are crossing the underpass to the west of the site and going down through that neighborhood and past Safeway. What's proposed is encouragement of employees to walk or bike to the headquarters, which is on 103. It's about a mile and a quarter. And so there's probably more foot traffic, but there's not necessarily issues with foot traffic. It just means there's slightly more daily trips potentially. And obviously there could be issues with anyone occupying a site. So good management of the property is imperative either way, which is why we've put conditions in place saying that if there's significant issues, council could revoke the approval and folks could no longer occupy the site. As I mentioned, I sent the referral to Chief Busick, who expressed some concerns about enforcement, as I kind of mentioned. The scale, which is 30 people on site, seems like a lot when right now there's 0. And those sorts of issues. If there's anything else that I missed, Chief, feel free to speak up. The Fire Authority also provided comments, Kelly Babian, who mentioned that engines and an ambulance could access the property, suggested gas fire appliances, and that they must comply with fire bans, and then also to have a site plan for the proposed campsites with contour lines to make sure that ability to access the site. And we've proposed a couple of conditions requiring that fire authority sign off before they can occupy. That way, we know that where people are camping and where they're occupying the space actually works with emergency services and fire. Cameron, who is the general manager of the Metropolitan Rec District, provided comments at our planning commission meeting. Some concern about potential conflicts between employees and park users, concern about impacts both ways during larger events, but ultimately, she did kind of provide support ultimately, as long as they can work those out. I think Cameron is on Zoom, so she might have public comment or could potentially ask questions, though I don't want to put her on the spot. So overall, obviously this is quite a kind of unique proposal. I know there's been issues with camping in the past, but I think what this proposal could do is potentially address an issue that already does occur with folks kind of camping unregulated and all of that. There's some concerns, access parking, those the like, but as a one season trial, and if it works, it would be need more work to become a permanent use. If it doesn't work, it wouldn't be approved again. It seems like something that generally meets conditional use permit requirements for the season. We recommended 17 conditions of approval on this, which are included in the staff report. The ones that are redlined were added at planning commission. So with that, I guess I will wrap up. And if you have questions for me now, I'll happily answer them.
Dylan, I do want to open that up to council questions. I will tell you my big concerns, just to start it out, mostly, admittedly, have had to do with unregulated camping. But I think we really need to adopt a zero type of tolerance for fire danger.
Yes.
And trash, accumulation of junk or debris. And again, I do realize that has been with unregulated camping. And I read this very thoroughly, and I am delighted, and I think we should have the fact that this is a trial. And we would hope everybody would be good neighbors and good stewards of the land. But I'm just saying that worst case scenario, if this trial goes south, then we pull the plug, and even if it was mid rafting season.
Mm-hmm.
That is how this is structured, correct?
Yes, which number? We have number 13, city council may revoke this UP at any time in accordance with the Idaho Springs Municipal Code is one of the proposed conditions.
Would that require that we have a reason other than human waste, general waste? I mean, do I have to have reason other than we've got 45 or 4 complaints and that's too many already? Because I don't want to have to go through a list of reasons.
I think that could, you have to have some sort of basis. I think that could serve as a basis, but it would be, the revocation would come in the same procedures here. I'm looking at the code. It's notice to the permit holder, another hearing like this, and then possible revocation or not at that subsequent hearing.
That takes a long time. I'm talking about like immediately shutting down the circus, because
no, you wouldn't be able to, because the code requires when you revoke one of these to go through that same due process.
So 13 really is not accurate if it says we may revoke this at any time.
it's not any time. It's within.
Well, anytime subject to hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Nick, but still 5 weeks
End of season.
ish.
Yeah, Yeah.
Just looking at notification timelines, like when things have to be.
And I do think chapter 16 of our code is about nuisances, and that includes things like trash and parking violations and junkyards and sewers and discharge of noxious waste and the like. So there's likely code related reasons to revoke it that would be easily defensible, but that time.
But defensible doesn't mean anything if you only have 90 days. Like if I wanted to raise hell halfway through, what are you gonna do about it? I mean, no offense, but if I was 22, I might have that attitude.
I think that the timeline could be sped up a bit if there was a revocation, because I don't think you'd have to go through this full second reading process with a new ordinance.
I do have a question. You said you spoke with Chaffey County because they said they've operated this in Chaffey County. What was Chaffey County's assessment of this applicant as somebody that ran this kind of operation?
Well, Chafee didn't have particular specific comments about this specific operator or his particular campsite, but they mentioned that they've done it a lot longer than Clear Creek has. I don't know exactly how long, but about 2 decades, they've never revoked the camping permit for employee camping, and they couldn't recall any violations that were notified and then actually carried out. There's likely, and that was the planning director for Chaffey County.
Because that's part of this too, like, yes, this is a trial run for us, but the applicant this is not their first rodeo. So what does their history look like? They need a place for their people to be. I know that we have challenges with camping. I'm like you, Chuck. I have a lot of problems with just people parking and camping because there's no regulation.
Mhm.
And, my other question would be, there's a manager on site. Is it a manager on site 24/7?
I believe that's at the planning commission meeting, but I'll ask that to the applicant.
Also, I believe the county has had something similar in place for a number of years. At least as far as I know, they haven't had to revoke anybody.
Yeah, that's what they mentioned to me as well. Clear Creek had said that they've never had a violation that's caused them to have to one off or revoke any permit.
What I don't see in the packet is actually, Cameron's, if she's listening, when they put together the camping for Rapid Grass, they give us out a site plan for where the camps are gonna go. I don't see that here. All I do see is I see 4 porta potties way on the other side of 30 tents, which makes me concerned about in the middle of the night, where is that person walking in the middle of the night? Sorry. I'm just giving Cam as an example. Cam has given us a set plan about where the porta potties are gonna be and where the tents are gonna be. I'm not seeing this right here. So my concern is human waste on the ground, at the ball fields, near where kids play, and run
Yeah,
around.
they gotta be good neighbors.
Well, I'm gonna tell you. I camp a lot. People are generally not great neighbors. Sorry, I do.
I certainly can't defend anybody who's not using the site yet, of course. The proposed location is quite far from like the ball fields. Someone would have to walk 150, 200 plus feet to,
I'm still
leave
saying,
waste on
one
that
bed after
property, but-
90 days. You do the math. One, just takes one.
Right.
So my concern is that right now, the disbursement of the facilities isn't to me sanitary.
Anything further for Dylan? All right, Dylan, we may, after the applicant, we may have additional questions for you. I would like for the applicant to come and testify next.
Thank you, council. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I do.
Okay, hello. Thank you. I apologize for not, to council for not being able to be present. I had a prior engagement.
Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Oh, yes, it's Duke Bradford. My residence is 128 Gold Lake Terrace in Breckenridge, Colorado.
Can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Again, council, thanks for having me. I've been operating, as some of you know, the AVA rafting for over 20 years on 103. And over that time, we bring in a lot of workers, seasonal workers for the summer. And over that period of time, we obviously love Idaho Springs. We enjoy the rafting community there, and we love the community itself. We've had troubles over the years with our camping or our staff camping in various places, not only AVA, but other rafting companies. So we were trying to sort of help and look at that situation and try to create an environment where there was some accountability and we could start to camp these people, where we took some ownership of our staff, because we felt that that was the responsible thing to do, and step up and sort of present a way forward so that we didn't have these independent, or as some council said, bad actors throwing trash in various places and not being accountable to the community. So we, with that, put forth a campground. We have been running a campground for employees in Buena Vista, as Dylan mentioned, for over 20 years. It's a challenge. It's something we take a lot of liability, frankly. We have to carry additional insurance. But in order to work and manage a seasonal employment staff, it's something that we had to do. To be accountable in Chaffee County. 20 years ago, we did it. We take it very seriously, and it has been a success. But I will say, not without a lot of hard work. It's a very time-consuming thing to take on. But I want council to know it's something we take very seriously, and quite honestly, it's something that we don't ideally want to do. But I think by not holding our staff accountable or not taking ownership of our staff, we do a disservice to the community. And so we look at this and say, we want to try this. We think we can do it. We've done it before in Buena Vista and had some success. I'm not saying that there aren't going to be bumps in the road, but it's not something that we don't take seriously. These are people that we count on to take everybody rafting. Those are the same people that come into the community and spend money at the restaurants and the retail shops. So we have a job there that we see as very serious. This isn't a summer camp party. We have basically 90 days to do 100% of what lasts us as a company through the entire year. We're there to work. We don't tolerate partying. This isn't a party. This is an opportunity for us to take people down the river safely and take a lot of people and bring a lot of people to the community. So that's a big job. And so we're here with that, trying to put this forth and put this in front of council and see what you guys think. If this is something we could pull off. Well, I've read public comment. I understand people in the past have thrown trash, and I'm not saying that this will stop all of that, but I do think us holding these people accountable. If we have bad actors, not only do they lose their place to camp, they lose their job. So we can hold some things over this group and make them comply with trash, human waste, things of that nature. We're not going to want a campground full of human waste. That's not the employment environment we would want to provide, not only for the community, but for our staff. So it isn't something where this is just some sort of free for all. That's just, we would not incur that kind of liability at all, frankly. It wouldn't be worth it. We would just go back to, I guess, sticking our head in the sand and allowing people to camp everywhere. It's not an ideal situation, but I wanted to bring this forward. It comes at a cost to us. This isn't something that we do lightly. Obviously the money we charge these people does not even come close to covering the cost of what this would take to pull off. So we're just here trying to put something forward that I think solves a problem that's long been a problem. And at that, I'll take any questions.
All right, I'd like to open it up to council for questions.
Do you plan to have a manager on site 24/7?
Yes.
And you do understand that if council approves this, and I want to emphasize if, council approves this, because this has never been attempted in our city, this is a trial. And really, I think, to be perfectly blunt, it would probably be on a pretty short fuse, and we would react quickly should there be an accumulation of any type of junk or debris or noise complaints. We would put this on a fast track to bring this to a stop. I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
Oh, absolutely, and so are we, and we're not, again, we incur a tremendous amount of liability here. This is our business. This is very serious stuff. This is not, something that we went into, lightly. This isn't ideal for us, frankly, either. So we understand that, this is very serious, and we're very serious about it. This is about bringing people to the community, having them work. I'm sorry? This is about bringing people to the community, having them work and live in a responsible way. So we're not negatively impacting the local community to the degree we have in the past. So I understand it's a short leash. So we'll be serious. I hope it works, and we're going to work real hard to make it work. If we have bad actors, we'll terminate them. And if you guys are concerned, we're going to be twice as concerned.
All right, anything further for the applicant? Yes, Dylan?
Could I, it's kind of a question for Nick, maybe. I'm wondering, with the concern about how long it would take to get through the process if there are issues, would we be able to establish like a standing check-in or something, like monthly or every meeting or something, to say, hey, someone, either code enforcement or someone from staff visits the site, you know, every few weeks or once a month or something. And then, so that way, if there was, like, and it's just kind of noticed that it'll be at the meeting. So that way, if there are major issues, it could be worked on more quickly.
Yeah, I don't see why you couldn't do like a
Check-in.
compliance check-in.
I don't mean to put the chief on the spot. Of course, we do have a code compliance officer. If that is something that would be reasonable.
Sure, we could do that. The PD could do that, or code enforcement could.
I think with them having a manager on site, we already have the mechanics for what you want to do in place. It'd just be that kind of change. So if council receives the complaints about this from a constituent, then it can maybe go to the PD that then talks to, or the code enforcement that talks to the manager.
I do think though that, I'm not sure if it would have to be a condition per se in the ordinance itself, since.
It's just like any other business, right?
Right, like
Yeah.
realistically, if there's complaints about the site, it gets referred to the chief, he refers it out to the code enforcement officer.
Yeah.
The code enforcement officer could check in on any business,
Right.
whether or not
Anytime.
it's pre-scheduled. And if you wanted to get more into this scheduled check-in, then sure, but I don't think you would have to put it in the ordinance for that to be a
Gotcha.
mechanic of, enforcement.
I appreciate that. Do we have any further questions for the applicant?
I do. Do you see a challenge with meeting, and this is a pretty long ordinance as far as the conditions. Do you see a challenge with meeting any of these 17 conditions?
I mean, just time, really. Obviously, we want to try this, for this season. And so, I mean, we'll be diligent for sure. I mean, we'll have all the managing agencies up there and we'll work diligently to get it done. I think we would like the opportunity, obviously, to try. And so we're gonna get it done, and we hope that it comes out the other end and it is a success, and council's happy with our efforts, and this can coexist, and it's an answer to a problem. I think nobody wishes that more than us, right? So yes, I think we can certainly fire any of that. That's not a problem.
You are the canary in the coal mine here. You are, like, this would be the test case, and if this doesn't go well, you guys won't be able to come back and do this again, and the community will not be interested in working with the rafting companies, which doesn't solve our problem with transient camping, or like, illegal camping.
Well, I actually did have a question about that. So the manager, Duke, is gonna be responsible to make sure that there is no transient. It's only employees.
Mhm.
In that camp,
Signed the rental agreement.
and sign the agreement that you have made. That's the only people that are allowed to camp there.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, I think so you understand, we incur a tremendous amount of liability here. I mean, our company's on that property. So that, problems there, where they have issues, that's on our insurance. So we, again, take it very seriously. This is not something we're going into lightly. We take it very serious in Chaffey County. Again, we've been doing it for 20 years. We've never, taken a violation because quite honestly, the liability lies with us. So it's not ideal. I mean, to be honest, I wish there was a commercial campground down the street and they could all live there, but that's just not our reality, right? And so here we are in a situation where we have some user group conflicts and we feel we need to step up. We love Idaho Springs. Idaho Springs has been very good to us as a business but this has been a problem. And at times it's given us a black eye. So we're hoping that this goes well and that we can bring in, seasonal workforce and it's not a negative impact on the community.
Any further questions for the applicant? Mr. Bradford, I'd like to thank you. Next, I would like to call for public comment. And before I do, since this is a hearing, we'll go in order of the sign up. I think we have at least one online. And I would also like to acknowledge it's never easy getting up, speaking to council. Frankly, I just want you to know I appreciate you coming out, regardless if you're pro or against. But thank you very much for your time and coming and speaking with us tonight. First up is Carl from Central City. Welcome, and please come on up.
Good evening, everyone. I rattled my mouth here a couple weeks ago, but understood that I needed to come back on the 29th of April. I'm probably not going to have too much more to say.
Carl,
Oh,
can you
yes.
please state your name?
My name is Carl Skembry. I represent Bonanza Land LLC, which has some properties in Clear Creek County.
Can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
So, I mean, to revisit this, I can certainly understand for the applicant that, we're all opposed to human waste. We're all opposed to forest fires and trespassing and all these things. I guess I just want to make sure, I'm here tonight, could have been doing other things. Who's going to clean it up? We talk about, 90-day process for actually, terminating the agreement and all that. It was 8 years ago, when I came on board representing this company, and I was involved in unloading all types of garbage off that mountain. And there wasn't any monitoring of it. And I just wonder, I'm here tonight. I was here 2 weeks ago. Am I going to be here in 3 months with roll-offs, cleaning this stuff up? Who's going to do it?
Carl, where is your property
It's directly west of the subject property. It's south of I-70. It includes a portion of the Doherty Placer, the Disbro Lode. Those are the ones that are most proximate to it.
Right.
So Carl, you're kind of between Montaigne Park and this property, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And in close proximity to I-70.
Correct. Yeah.
So
Down by that road. And I know there's ways, we could get a surveyor, flag the property. We can define the property lines. I understand all that. But I just wonder when let's say, if there's an issue, who's going to deal with all the trash? Who's going to deal with the forest fire? Is it me heading over there? I've got other roles to play. Not being the ranch hand south of I-70 with the campers. I've been there, I've done that. You know, I really don't want to go back there. I've got other things to do. So yes, I mean, there's a lot of things we can do. We can do the survey, we can, you know, provide, you know, the data on how many campers. I don't know how you regulate that with a membership card. I mean, I'm really interested to see how that's regulated as far as, you know, you got 30 campers, but, you know, 24-hour access. I'm just interested, you know, it's up to the city.
Oh, actually, on your note there about the waste, let's just say there is waste, Nick, left behind. And this company that's basically asking for conditional use of this property, they would ultimately be responsible. Now, the proof is in the pudding. How do you prove that their employees are a part of the problem that is over there?
Yeah, I mean, like Dylan mentioned when you first brought up the waste comment earlier, it would be a chapter 16 nuisance issue. I was kind of looking at chapter 16 on my computer in anticipation of this question. Best the city could do, best case scenario would be like an emergency abatement where you go in, clean up everything, and then assess the costs against the property owner. That's pretty standard for any, you know, house with trash issues. Obviously, if it wasn't an emergency abatement, then you'd be looking at a more prolonged abatement process that comes with notice, and you get a hearing and then a court order to go in and clean up everything.
Nick, I appreciate that, and I would just like to say that the applicant will have an opportunity for rebuttal if they wish. But that being said, I do believe that this council would probably lean more heavily on an emergency type of abatement.
And obviously there's the other lens to that process, which is the city notifies the applicant or, you know, the permit holder, if they're successful, of the issues with the property and the threat of revocation of the permit brings about the corrective actions.
So my other thing is, Carl, is you're concerned about that the folks on this property will spill onto the property that you are managing?
It happens when you have campers.
No, I'm not like.
Yeah, no, that is
because
part of the
Their
reason.
property is their like, that would be on them to clean up. I would fully expect that property would be tidied at the
I
end
would
of season,
expect,
but.
I would hope that is, you know, but it's me hiking through the forest and finding bags of human waste. And what's that? An afternoon of my time, a day of my time, 2 weeks of my time, coming back to cancel, whining about it. Here tonight, here 2 weeks ago. No, I mean, the time adds up.
I mean, and just out of curiosity, is your property, has it been camped on before? But I mean, obviously it hasn't been camped on with voters because.
And council may be able to respond to this, but it was about 7 years ago that there was an encampment on the property. The client I represent, there were roll-offs at my client's expense to pull off the property and get rid of.
Right.
And, you know, and I was kind of, wasn't full on board, but I know that there was, you know, I think there was the Forest Service, I think there was the Idaho Springs Police Department. I'm not gonna say who was involved, but this had become it become an issue, and it becomes a bigger issue before it was eliminated. But it was ultimately my client who had to deal with it, which means I'm gonna have to deal with it.
I'm gonna sound like I'm on both sides of the table, because I am. But in that instance, particularly 7 to 8 years ago, there was a large amount of problems in the mountains with large groups of people camping all over Netherland, Idaho Springs. Many places got affected by that particular group of people.
There was that, but I believe subsequent to, I won't name the property owner who also owned a portion of the Doherty Plaza, said that there were subsequent to that time additional campers up there.
Right.
With issues.
Right.
I didn't have time to go hike the mountain and shoo them away.
Right.
You know, so I can't be sure. In fact, I'll say I won't know. I can say 6 years ago, I was involved with a major cleanup.
But all I can say to that is that it is your property ultimately, and therefore you are ultimately responsible for chasing all the trespassers. I mean, I don't wanna be rude,
So
but
we will put the burden on adjoining property owners. to
and
make
that's
sure
not what
that
I'm
we
saying. I'm
police the
saying
property.
you're asking us to say no to this property for doing a trial camp spot because it might affect your property. Do you,
Well, I mean,
Kind of.
there is the cleanup and there is all that. There's also the devaluation of a property. So, if you look at that, I don't know if any of you, I'm sure you all are local, probably have some acreage. There's a campsite that opens up next to the property and, everyone who has a property has a dream in the mountains to maybe build a cabin or develop it. So when you have 30 campers right next door, what does that do to your property? Probably affects it.
But that becomes a line of where do you tell someone what they can and can't do with their property if they're within the legal guidelines?
But if it's not zoned for it, then you question the zoning.
and I think that's where this is kind of, at least for me, I'm not gonna speak for the rest of the council. This is a trial run on a non-zoned property, which, by the way, I've been fully against camping in the city of Idaho Springs since I started on council many, many years ago. That being said, we still have the problem of housing that we've always had, and especially at this particular level for the service industry, which does serve to a certain extent our summer economy. So I'm not saying that we're changing the zoning or creating a zoning for camping. I'm just saying that we're having a conditional use for this summer to see, well, I'm saying that for me, to see how this goes. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that you are ultimately responsible for what happens on somebody else's property. But as a property owner, if the guy next door to me in Idaho Springs decides to make it an Airbnb, there's not a whole lot I can do as long as it's within the rights of that property. And that's kind of what we're doing
But this
right now.
isn't within the current rights of that.
But there's no zoning on this property.
So it needs to be rezoned, right? I mean, I'm a ranch hand, but I'm also a developer in Gilpin County. So I do subdivision, and I kind of have to work with people on both sides. So I mean, I kind of understand that. I mean, I understand that AVA is an important part of the economy in Idaho Springs, and I understand from just being a spectator that it's all kind of been preliminary accepted, accepted on a preliminary level. However, I know you said if, and that, I mean, I gather that. I'm just here to offer perspective. All of our time is valuable. I don't want to be up there babysitting this thing. I also don't want my client's property devalued. And I also know that, this is a test. A test is a shoe-in. We know that too.
That's not very true.
Hold up a
Yeah.
second. So you're speculating that the property would devalue, right?
Well,
It's a speculation,
no, I mean, I think most
So it's based
properties,
on-
if you have a property,
okay,
okay, and you have a campsite that opens next to your property,
right?
I think most adjustments for an appraiser, I'm not a licensed appraiser, but I think most adjustments for an appraiser when it comes to rural acreage, it would devalue the property.
So you believe, or this is based on data and knowledge?
I would believe that, I would say, and I would guess, that if a licensed appraiser would say, if there was a permitted campsite next to a property, I would guess that an appraiser would say that property would be devalued.
So when I say speculation, that means yes.
I'm not a licensed appraiser.
Okay, that's proves my point. My point is we're doing
But I am a
a lot of
licensed
what
real
ifs
estate agent.
involving this conditional use. Whether I vote for it or vote against it, all I'm looking for is, does he meet the requirement, legal requirement? Has he gone through the process? He has. Right? We're deciding on the legal, is it legally allowable for him to do this? And if he meets the criteria for that, it's no longer a personal decision on whether we like it or don't like it. It's, can you legally meet the requirement to do it? I understand your concern with your property. So what I ask you is your property currently marked no trespassing? Do you have a sign every 450 feet per state statute? Do you have all that stuff in place? So that if there's a trespassing issue, you're in a defensible position.
Do that next week. It's not a big deal.
That would be my suggestion. If this is a concern that they're gonna trespass, I think you should look at the state statute for how you enforce trespassing and make sure you are completely in compliance to allow the police department, when you do file a complaint, to have a defensible position. So yes, he's in compliance with state statute and they've done everything they could do to prevent it. I just think there's, whether, this isn't a yes or no on this as far as our personal preference, this is a, do they meet the legal requirements for conditional use? And if you read the documentation from planning commission and all the process, they do. So whether I like it or don't like camping in particular, I'm here to decide if they meet the legal requirement for the zone,
The
and if they
legal,
do.
legal requirements for conditional
Exactly.
review, I mean, that requires a vote. I mean, legal requirements, I mean, if I mean, conditional means it's conditional.
Which we said is for 90 days, that's
17
conditional.
conditions.
So we met conditions, we met 17
Okay,
conditions.
so that's already been
No.
agreed upon.
No,
It
we
hasn't
haven't
been, I
agreed
think
on
you're going, you're pushing us a little farther than you need to push us. We are going to make a vote tonight on if he meets, we think he can meet the 17 conditions, which the owner probably says he can, which is required to meet the conditional use. We're voting on if we think that the property owner has the ability to meet the conditions put forward by planning commission and meet the legal standard. This isn't a personal opinion, this isn't a pre-decided thing on anybody's part. And I understand your position as adjacent property owner. What is your property zoned as?
It's
Has to be mining, right?
it's part of the placer,
Mhm.
which
That's what I'm
would be, it's M1.
Demo. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
So it is developable.
It is developed, no,
And
100% developed.
because it is within the city of Idaho Springs, it's potentially subdividable.
It's not in the city.
It's not
It's
within the
not,
city.
that's my next statement. It's actually outside some of those city limits, it's adjacent to Forest Service. So my point is, nothing here has been pre-decided by the group in any way, shape, or form, which is why we're having a public hearing, which is why we're going through this entire process, which is why we're asking 1,000 questions to the police chief and to Dylan about planning and what planning commission's saying, and I'm assuming we're gonna talk to the rec center and get their impression on this also. So none of this is predetermined. But this is called due process, and we're gonna go through the process appropriately. And if they meet their criteria and we have no reason to say no against it beyond our personal opinion, which is not what we're here to do. It's about, do they meet the criteria? Then yeah, we'll vote accordingly. But we're just barely into that process. You're the third presenter beyond staff, second beyond staff. So my suggestion is, I understand your concerns and they're completely valid. Make sure you do everything you need to do for you to protect your property and protect your client. I think that's the term there, client, not your property, but your client's property. Make sure they're in compliance with trespassing laws and all the stuff they need to do so that if something were to happen, or there is a trespassing issue, you're in a defensible position to handle that on the legal aspect.
Well, I'm glad you made it clear that it's not my property. But I have a POA for the owner. Like I said, I came here and expressed an opinion on behalf of the person I work with. No one likes to hire someone to be the babysitter and follow this stuff. I'm not getting any insurance that I'll be communicated with. I'm getting basically, you deal with it. You survey the property, you chase it. You're the ranch hand, you deal with the campers. What's the plan? There is no plan.
There is a plan, and
I mean, how is that communicated to a property owner? It's me. I'm not free to go out there and chase this. You know, yes, you're right. I need to put up no trespassing signs. Yes, maybe my client needs to pay for a survey to do this. Is that what you're also
no,
implying?
I'm not saying a client needs to do that. I'm just saying that
But I mean, you're
There are
implying that I need to be aware of the property boundaries.
I think the property boundaries are part of this discussion, right?
So then I need
We're
to-
permitting use within the property boundaries.
So my client needs to invest in this project as well.
No,
Your client should know where your property lines are.
I can, I got on it time, yes, we do, but we all know here, people, it could be a toss of rock.
again, that's not what we're talking about. We're looking at allowing a use on a designated property that has a written plan for how it's being used, it's gone through planning commission. That's what we're talking about.
And can I just touch on your point with planning commission, Jeremy? Planning commission never, to my knowledge, sends something to the council for approval. It was 4-1 to my understanding,
Right.
that they don't 100% vet. So they have also gone down the legal road to make sure that this property is within the boundaries of what it's being asked of us to do.
Right.
So, like Jeremy said, please correct me if I'm wrong, by law, I can't make an opinion for or against something just based on my personal opinion, which I already said earlier. I've been opposed to camping in the town for many, many years. But if it is allowed within that area, and that is what they're asking, then we have no choice but to go forward and vote for it. Am I
That's
on
correct, yes.
point? Okay, thanks.
Okay, well, if you have no choice, you have no choice. I'm here to express the position of the landowner to whom I represent. And I guess what we'll be doing is getting together at the end of December and maybe having a little powwow, and hopefully there are no issues.
I think that's a great
Yeah.
idea.
You know, I think adjoining property owners should be part of that discussion. I'm hoping, you know, I guess I'm not gonna be, I'd love to be informed if there are any citations. I'd love to be part of that monitoring group, unfortunately, because we all have other things to do. But if that's what's being imposed on me, to be the policeman along the property boundary, then I guess that's what I gotta do this summer. And I'm picking up trash, I guess that's what I gotta do. I guess I don't have a choice. I don't have a choice from what I'm hearing.
Carl, along those lines, this is your time to express to council, and I think you've done quite an eloquent job expressing your concerns. And I want you to know, I'll give you my word, we have had absolutely no discussions. I don't have a clue how the council is going to vote on
I
this.
wouldn't imply
But,
that you did.
but I would ask, because you had brought up communications, and I think communications are very important. That obviously you do have a way to contact City Hall. And I would just ask, would you mind sharing your contact information just with either me or with Wonder? So we have a way to, if anything, and again, I don't know how this vote goes down, but if we did need to get a hold of you, that we could.
By all means,
Thank you.
looking to.
Thank you very much.
Everyone. And I appreciate your time.
No, thank
Thanks,
you.
Carl.
Yep, thank you very much.
I'll be in touch with you.
Perfect,
I'll
that
send
sounds
you an
great,
email.
okay.
And Carl was the only one that I had signed up for public comment, but my understanding is we have at least one online, is that correct? Is it Cameron?
Yeah, she's coming on right now.
Oh, okay. Cameron, welcome.
That's it?
She's fine with it?
She was doing sign language.
Oh.
She's wanting to get sworn in.
I think you're muted.
This is like charades.
Hi,
All right. Wow.
thumbs up that I would be, can you hear me?
There you go.
All right, let's do charades. I'm really good at this.
Are we here?
Cameron,
Yes,
please state your name and address for the record.
Cameron Marlin, 269 Zip Trail, Idaho Springs, Colorado.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Yes. I apologize for the technical difficulties, but I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts. Dylan, I think you did a great job of summing up my opinion that I shared at the Planning Commission meeting. But just a couple of things to pass along to council. One in particular relates to protection of CCMRD property. And I was just reading through the IGA that exists to govern the partnership between the city of Idaho Springs and CCMRD. And in there is indemnification of both parties. I'm specifically curious how that indemnification would relate to any potential negligence or misuse of any property by the AVA campers or residents. So that's one piece indemnification, protection of CCMRD property is a second. And then I just think it would be important to say that in preparation for the skate park, it's crucially important that perception around safety be maintained of the ball field space. And I am worried about, vehicle traffic or other potentially unsafe behaviors and how that would relate to the CCMRD reputation. Those are my only concerns. But assuming we can work out the details, CCMRD is happy to be a good neighbor.
Nick, I would appreciate your counsel on that.
Would the traffic between the traffic concerns?
Well, and then,
The safety of the.
yeah, there's a damage to their property, accumulation of debris or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's just like with any other property that would have an issue property. I think you get in touch with the city and try to have the city go through its code enforcement process.
Cam, how often do you have people at the field? Your staff is at the field?
More so in the summertime. So, when their staff is living down at the ball fields, I think it's to be expected that CCMRD would have a presence pretty close to a daily basis.
So that does give you a little bit of like your own, without being, onerous to your organization, that somebody will take a peek at your property and make sure that it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But what if, for example, someone is climbing a light pole in the middle of the night and falls and hurts themselves? I would like to make sure that CCMRD is indemnified due to the negligence or potential misuse of any CCMRD property.
So wouldn't that be considered trespassing at that hour of the day? I mean, it's trespassing, so they would be under, it would be nothing because they're breaking the law. Am I right, Chief? Am I on?
Okay.
Civil matters, I don't want to get into that, other than it'd be like anyone trespassing into anyone's property and then doing something and
And hurting themselves,
But don't the ball fields close at dusk?
unless she has something going on.
Unless there's something going on, don't they close at dusk?
There aren't posted closure signs or times. And like rapid grass, for example, or softball goes long beyond dusk.
These facilities are owned by the rec district, right?
Right.
So.
They're owned by the city, I mean, essentially.
Okay.
But like
On lease to the city.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, the CGIA would cover the city for liability unless there's negligence on behalf of the city, but someone climbing a light pole, unless the city got like 2 weeks straight of notices saying that people have been climbing the light poles and you guys aren't doing anything about it. A one-off situation where someone climbs a light pole, there's no negligence on behalf of the city for that.
Right, you just fell off the light pole. You're an idiot. Gotcha.
It's like, I'd even equate it to like someone suing a car for hitting them because they were running in the middle of the highway.
All right, gotcha, like it.
all right.
So is it fair to assume that based on what you just said, any kind of negligence or misuse on behalf of a City of Idaho Springs tenant, I guess it wouldn't be a tenant, but a party to an agreement, that the indemnification extends to that?
I don't know without looking at the agreement itself, and I mean, it's kind of tough to make that blanket statement, I would say. Yes or no, one way or another.
I totally understand that. I'm just worried about our potential risk exposure.
That's a fair assessment. About the risk exposure.
All right. Anything further? Carmen, or Cameron, I'm sorry, I'm got my legal brain on right now. Forgive me. Do you have anything further for us?
Mayor, one thing I might add there.
Just that I would. Go ahead, Andy.
One thing I might add is I think that the same principle might apply to posting the property. You might consider how the property might be better posted, the facilities down there, at the ball field, similar to the adjacent property, making sure it's clear where his property is and posting. Might be good just to review that and see if there can be some maybe additional posting that makes it clear, as far as, the ball fields and what's required there, and what's not allowed.
So,
Just fun.
Okay.
don't we own that property?
Yes, we
correct?
own the
So
property.
should that not partly be our responsibility as
And,
well?
and we would, I think you're right, that's
We could
fair.
partner
We
with-
should probably
Yeah,
work
like-
together on that. The facilities are, a lot of those improvements have been done by the rec district, so.
So
it's
maybe this
re-
needs to be a partnership with
I
us,
think
that,
that's fair. Yep.
we make it very clear. I don't think that they should totally share that.
Right.
They should totally be the
Burden.
sole
Yeah, burden.
holder of that burden.
And Andy, I mean, CIRSA insures us on that property currently, right?
So it's kind of covered. Is that what you're saying, Chuck? It's covered. Okay, cool. Ruby?
Anything further? Cameron?
No, I appreciate it. I'm good. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very
Thanks,
much, and have a good night, please.
Thanks, you
I-
too.
Do we have anyone else online for comment? Because if not, I will give the applicant an opportunity for rebuttal if they wish. Mr. Bradford, you're more than welcome at this time for rebuttal to any of the comments that were made.
Thank you, Council. I'd just like to say, the concerns that everyone has, I think we share. Obviously the trash issue, we'll be a good neighbor, just like we've been on 103. If there's trash, we'll deal with it. We have a trash plan. We in no way are looking to put up a campground and then trash our reputation in the community. So we intend to be a good neighbor, and as we go through this process to try to solve this problem with seasonal workforce, our door will be open. We'll be open to our neighbors, certainly to the rec center and anybody else that has concerns. We're hoping this works out. I think we can do it, and we're going to work really hard to make it a reality if given the opportunity. But we do definitely understand everybody's concerns and the concerns we heard from the public loud and clear. That's all I have.
All right.
Thank you, Council.
Anything from council?
One question, and I can't remember if I saw it, so I'm just gonna ask. Is there any kind of allowance or legal language around pets?
Yeah, there's no, I believe, and do correct me if I'm wrong, and I believe in the lease agreement, it specifies no pets.
All right, great. Thank you.
No
Okay.
pets.
Yeah, I
No pets,
missed
no fires.
I didn't want to do that. I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, anything further from council? And I would also like to know, is there anything further from staff? All right, hearing no further comments, it is 8:22. We're now closing the hearing. And I would like to make the motion with all 17 conditions that we approve ordinance number 14, series 2024, an ordinance granting a conditional use to permit temporary seasonal employee camping during the 2024 rafting season only on a certain property west of Shelley Quinn Ball Fields Park, known as part of the Silver Spruce annexation to the city of Idaho Springs. And do I have a second? Second from Jeremy. Any discussion?
Yes. When I read this, I was not for it because I'm like Kate, I don't like the idea of camping in the city.
Mhm.
However, I really don't like the idea of all the folks that are camping with no regulations and frankly, with no safety. Like if you're camping on the side of the road, there's no safety for you and that's not, that's not ideal. I think that this is a good framework to start a trial, like this is 90 days. And I have heard the concerns of the adjacent property owners, and they are completely legit. But I agree with Jeremy, it's up to the adjacent property owners to say, okay, here's my boundary line, don't cross it. They have to do that in order for us to address any challenges. I think this is a really good framework. I'm gonna cross my fingers that this all goes well if we vote for this, because this is a problem. I was a seasonal worker for 10 years. I 1000% understand this challenge of where do you park yourself when you're not there for very long. I gotta hope it's gonna go well.
Lisa, I agree with you, and I want you to know, I 100% understand that letter from Rick Wells.
I do.
I thought it was very well done.
Yes.
I thought, Carl coming over from Central City 2 different times
Yes,
was very obvious. He really does care and he's concerned. And, I do feel better, going in and, inspecting and making sure things stay decent. And, you know, I'm saying staying on this, but I'm with you. This is a trial and I really, really hope this works and works well. Because if it doesn't, then the plug's getting pulled.
and we won't have any kind of opportunity to help our seasonal, like our outdoor seasonal workers who really, they're not here for more than 3 or 4 months. They can't enter into leases, you know, so what are they stuck with? Airbnbs that are really overpriced? I mean,
Right.
This has worked at the county level consistently the last 3 years.
Okay,
I can't think other than maybe one debris issue out of all the campsites that I can think of, we ever had a problem.
With the workers.
And with any of these facilities out in the, on a corporate.
you know, they don't wanna be
county.
unsafe either, I mean.
They've been very consistently well maintained.
Good.
We're willing to adjust when requested, from my experience outside of this role.
And they do come, I just actually, as a side note to Duke and others, we do have a lot of the seasonal workers come in the library for a temporary card. I have not yet met one kid that hasn't been very respectful, so I'm hoping that they don't have that one oddball camper that just doesn't care about anything. But yeah, I mean, this is another hard pill for me to swallow today, so yeah.
It's a rough day.
Been a rough pill day.
So Duke, I will ask that, you know,
Well,
you
the
communicate or
hearing
your
is-
manager
Lisa,
or whomever.
The hearing's closed.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
all
Yes.
right, no,
I'm sorry.
that was me, I made a
Duke,
mistake.
Any further discussion amongst us?
Sorry.
Hearing none, roll call, please.
Lisa Manifold,
Yes,
Kate Collier,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeremy Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes. Appreciate everybody's effort on that. We do not have our treasurer, we don't have our treasurer tonight, city clerk, there's nothing additional. And I would ask that under the mayor and council, I just want to point out upcoming May 3rd, city council retreat. And
We can skip something though.
Let's skip HG.
yeah, we said public works too.
We have one action item on public.
oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
It's been a long night.
All right. I appreciate you watching over me here. Yes, and before we get there, I do have city attorney on the list. I just want to make sure you didn't have anything further.
Just nice to see everyone in person.
Okay,
Always.
all right, well, thank you. Public's work, thank you so much. All right, so we have a staff report request with one action item, and I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the contract for services with HCR Engineering for extended services on Virginia Street and Virginia Canyon reconstruction projects in the amount of $296,749 from line item 23-00-5103.
Thank you, Jeremy, and do I have a second?
I will second.
Second from Lisa. Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Lisa Manifold,
Yes,
Kate Collier,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeremy Jones.
Yes.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes, and just while we're on Public Works, Paul, thank you. I just wanted to make sure you didn't have anything further share with us tonight.
I did not, thank you.
All right.
Flashers are going up on those crosswalks.
It was awesome.
We have one box that we had to return. It had an exploded capacitor in there, so the company's sending one straight out, and they'll have a return label for that. We'll get that turned back in, and then we'll get that last crosswalk up.
All right, good, and they are looking good.
Good.
Okay. Ed, anything for us tonight?
I don't have anything.
All right, well, thank you, sir, for being here. We
I'm
appreciate
glad I
you.
came. No.
All right,
Pretty interesting.
all right, yep. All right, now, for the, May 3rd retreat, just a reminder, for, council. And also, we are going to have both a work session and a regular meeting, for May 13th. And, Andy, did you have anything further to share with us tonight?
Nothing further.
All right, I would ask, Dylan, you don't have anything further, do you? Okay, Jonathan?
No, sir.
Okay, then, I would like to make a motion that we go into,
I have one thing.
oh, yes,
Sorry, I didn't realize we skipped over the mayor and council, and I apologize.
what's sorry?
I made this request, I think, 2 weeks ago, but I've heard again from one of my constituents who is very concerned about the alleyway behind Center Alley. They have had a lot of problems with people speeding through there. They've made yet another request that, we do something about signage, maintaining the low speed limits. Like, they're very concerned that they or someone else is going to be hit. I know we talked about speed bumps, and that was not necessarily a good call because of trying to get plows or whatever through there, but they're really worried about pedestrians in that alley and how fast people are speeding.
And Lisa, I want you to know, we did discuss that, with a department heads meeting. Chief has a pretty good idea, and, I also would like, to hear from, Paul regarding that as well.
Only because I've heard my constituent
But,
again, I want to get.
and also, I want you to know, I had actually heard from John Bardoni years ago about the potential for speed bumps. It was his belief that speed bumps at least were going to cause more problems than they solved. I had expressed that opinion to Paul, and I believe he also is in agreement with that, but we may have some other alternatives to slow people down.
That's their concern, is they want people to slow down.
And we're taking their complaints at face value. I don't necessarily disagree that they're not seeing speeders through there on occasion, but I just don't think it's to the level that they're complaining about. The alleyway is not a pedestrian walkway. There are walkways on Colorado Boulevard and Minor Street for pedestrians specifically, and the alleys specifically for pedestrians. They're walking in the alleyway. They're not supposed to be walking in the alleyway.
I would add that we're gonna research a device that would allow us to actually put this device on a pole that will measure speed. It's actually very indiscreet. People have no idea what it is. So I'm gonna research the potential purchase of this device for these types of complaints, because sometimes what we see is that we see people say that people are speeding and that it's happening a lot, but this device will capture like that data.
I think that would be great.
For an
I
entire,
think that
like
would
for
be
an
great.
entire week, and then we can download it and we can see exactly what's happening. And
Does it
then
give
it
you
would
times a
give,
day when it's happening?
I'm sorry,
Will it give you times?
gives you times a day, day of week, and then you
like
know
that.
exactly what the speed is. And this technology isn't that expensive, so.
And we can move it from place to
And
place.
you
So
can
we
move
can
it
get
from
that
Oh,
straight
that's a
to
good
it.
idea too.
And if I may, Chief, it's relatively inexpensive. We're talking like under $2,000 maybe.
Yeah.
I volunteered for
A couple $1,000s in there.
Yeah.
If I'm solve problems throughout town.
But
I
if
think
you
it's a
can move
great
it
idea.
around town too, that actually helps. Like,
Yeah,
if we have-
it's a great tool
People
that
say there's problem areas.
we would like to get, or I would like to have for these types of complaints.
Mhm.
No, it's good, but it also, for Lisa, she can go back to her constituent and say,
We are working on it.
we're monitoring it, we are literally
Absolutely.
going to monitor it.
The other reason that those are really beneficial, because if there is a recording problem and it tells us, between 3 and 4 o'clock, this is when this happens all the time, it's fantastic, because that's when we can actually do more.
Or if we have
enforcement
Well, you
repeat
can hear
offenders.
versus just randomly trying to enforce,
Right, it's probably parents.
so.
Stop that.
All right, well, thank you.
That might solve itself with a new school.
I am going to make a motion that we go into executive session, but before I do, I want to make sure that nobody has anything else for our regular session. Okay, then I would like to make a motion that we go into executive session pursuant to CRS 24-6-402 parentheses 4 parentheses A and parentheses E to discuss the potential acquisition of real property to determine strategy and to possibly instruct negotiations concerning the same. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second,
Really
really, Kate.
fast.
All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand and saying aye. Any opposed?
Maybe just give us I wanna go to the bathroom.
You got it.
You got it. John set up.
Chuck motioned, Kate seconded.
Thank you.
I heard you.
It's kind of quick, 'cause I got-
Chuck moved,